And welcome to another episode of Patriots Fourth and Two. Derek Haven, Steve Balistrieri, and Mike Diabate here. We are all here from PatsFans.com. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in live. And if you're listening later, please do not forget to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. Gentlemen, we are recording this April 22nd. We are 2 days away from the draft. Thank God, because honestly, as much as I love the draft, I cannot wait for all this pre-talk to be over. I feel like we've been reading recipes and all I want to do is bake. So before we do anything, I have to start the show off the same way. Steve, how you doing, man?
Well, let's go to Mike first because he has a little bit of news to share with our listeners.
I was going to get to that, but yeah, Mike, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, well, thank you, gentlemen. I do appreciate that. It's an honor to be here on Patriots Fourth and Two. Always my honor and privilege, and I feel like I'm home here. And you guys have opened your home to me, and I do appreciate that. Yeah, I do have a little bit of news to share with our listeners and everyone who's viewing us today. I am once again back in the Sports Illustrated family, in the Minute Media family. I will now be writing and content creating for New England Patriots on Sports Illustrated. So if you have any questions or any concerns regarding your New England Patriots, I'll be on them, covering them, boots on the ground coverage here in Foxborough, Massachusetts. It's great to be back on the beat. It's great to be back with the SI family. I'm definitely thrilled for this opportunity. And I want to thank all of you out there, most of you out there listening or that viewing, have taken the time to send me very kind words of support, not just over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours since I've announced that on social media, but even before, throughout the month. So I really want to thank each and every one of you for that. It's meant more to me than you could possibly imagine, and having these great gentlemen to be able to chop it up with when it comes to Patriots football is truly an honor. So great stuff, and looking forward to a great show today, guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, you are more than deserving, my friend, so I'm happy for you. I'm very happy for you. So, gentlemen, let's just start off before we have our annual mock draft. I know Mike's this is the first year that you're being a part of it, but Steve and I have been doing this for over a decade now, where we kind of make our picks for each team going through the first round, and it opens up some good discussion. But I do want to start with a quick topic. There's been a lot of smoke, and I'm not sure what's true, what's not true. It's hard to tell. But the Eagles are potentially wanting to trade up, and they've been kind of sniffing around. There's been some rumors that the Browns, the Giants could trade down. The Eagles apparently want to trade up. Apparently, they have their eye on Abdul Carter. If they do, the Patriots could be trading from 4 down to 32. Now, in return, they would get the 32nd pick. There's been rumors they would get next year's first-round pick and A.J. Brown, so they would go ahead and get this, this kind of premier receiver that we all like. Now, look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Patriots screwed up massively, and Steve and I talked about him and Deebo Samuel at nauseum during that draft season. It makes no sense they didn't draft him at the time. To go ahead and add that chess piece for Drake May would be intriguing, for sure. But to me, guys, as far as just really quick, my take is I just don't know if it makes sense for the Patriots. I think you need to get a pillar core piece and to kind of build with. In the last couple of years, they've done that with Christian Gonzalez and Drake May, and I think that they're building towards something. A receiver who's in his late 20s, he still has 4 or 5 good years left. I'm not saying that. But I just don't know if it makes sense for this team right now. I still think they need to go ahead and focus on that offensive line and go ahead and get those trenches ready before they add that cherry on top. To me, this is a move that we might be talking about next offseason. I'm not sure if it makes sense for this offseason. Mike, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting to think about trading down, and especially if you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles that are looking to make a huge move up, you have to take a look at the intangibles for both sides. Derek, I think you've articulated it perfectly when it comes to the Patriots side. There's too many holes on this team to essentially trade away that type of first-round draft capital and a guy that's going to be under your control for many years to come that you can mold into this new system to get a player who is clearly, at the top of his game in A.J. Brown. I mean, there's no question about it, but you need to be very careful about bringing in guys that are going to end up costing more in the immediate rather than in the long term. And when you can control someone that is at the top of the draft class for a good period of time and they're on their rookie contract, that's when you want to strike where the iron is hot. So I agree with you. The Patriots are building the trenches well. I think they're building a solid unit here that is going to be able to compete in shorter order than a lot of Patriots fans may be giving them credit for. But to me, I think what's very interesting right now is that the Eagles are even involved in these types of discussions, because those that I've spoke to, sources of mine, friends of mine, close to the Eagles organization, say they have no intention of making a move that big up the ladder. You take a look at the players it would take to move in order to be able to do that. You're talking an almost $42 million loss if you're trading J.J. Brown. That's a lot for any team to kind of stand up for and to try to say, okay, well, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to make that move. To me, I just don't think it makes much sense for the Eagles. I don't think it makes much sense for the Patriots. It makes good talk show fodder, which is why we're talking about it today.
Sure.
But if anybody's looking for this to happen, I never say never to any scenario. So I won't say that this is absolutely 100% impossible, but I would be highly, highly surprised, borderline shocked, if something like this were to come down before the names start being called on Thursday evening.
Yeah, and you look, like Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are aggressive, and I can respect the way they've built their team. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they're involved. They have some. They if they want to swing some things around to go ahead and make an aggressive move, wouldn't shock me. To me, the Patriots trading down from like 4 to 7 or somewhere in the top 10 wouldn't shock me either. Like that to me makes sense. But all the way to 32. I don't really get it. Steve, what's your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, first, I just want to relay an interesting tidbit. Derek and I, and our listeners know this, they've heard it a million times. Derek and I frequently do the podcast 12 to 14 times a week over the phone. Sometimes twice, 3 times a day. And, we'll be talking about stuff. And it just so happened on Sunday, we were talking about this and I wasn't at home. And there was a guy walking back and forth. I had Derek on speaker. And then he kind of hung out there for a minute. And then he walked away. And then after we were done, he came back and he was a doctor. And he said to me, he's from Philly, as a matter of fact, he's a big Eagles fan. And he said, I heard you guys talking. And he's like, that's a scenario that would be really interesting if Philly really believes that Carter is going to be like, potential Hall of Famer. And he said, but, Howie Roseman, I don't know if he goes for that. And I just found that interesting. I mean, he was a guy listening to our podcast 2 days before it happened. Which frequently does. But anyway,
as our wives will tell you.
And it's a legitimate question. Would Howie Roseman go for that? I'm not sure, because they would be giving up a lot of capital, and they would have to be really convinced that Abdul Carter was going to be the guy. And I'm not really sure the Patriots want to make, as you said, that drastic a move. I mean, trading down as far as 10, maybe even 11 or 12, I could see them doing that if the compensation was there.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve. Let me ask you this though, just to throw it into that same point. If let's say the Patriots had their left tackle of the future, let's say they already had whoever that left tackle is, I don't care who it is, and we weren't looking at the line as this thing right now. Does that change the conversation to you? Because it might change the conversation to me.
Oh, absolutely. Because then you're open for business. Basically, you have that opportunity to go in any direction that you want, and it wouldn't shock me if Ashland Jeanty is the guy at number 4, if they had that left tackle. And, there's still a very, very, very slim possibility that they swing a trade for Colton Miller, because they have the cap space to pay him what he wants.
Well, let
And
me ask you, Mike, if we swing over to the Colton Miller thing, which I do want to get to the mock draft here in a second, but look, just before we do that, the Colton Miller news has been a lot. Obviously, the Raiders are talking about potentially moving him. I believe he's 29. I don't have him right up
yep.
here. He's going to be due a pretty decent, sizable contract. Uh, do you think that move makes sense? I mean, even if we preface it like this, let's say that we're waiting for the draft board to fall, and let's say Abdul Carter is on the board. Do you call the Raiders and say, can we give you our third round pick for Colton Miller or our next year's second? And then all of a sudden you get your franchise tackle for the next probably 5 years. And then you have one of the best defensive players in the entire class as well. And you kind of double dip. Does that sound intriguing to you, or do you think that's too rich for your blood?
I mean, it would be intriguing because you're looking at someone that has pedigree in the NFL and has played the position at a high level. You
Mm-hmm.
did mention that 29 is his age. That is something that definitely speaks well of his resume coming in, because you're not talking about a guy that's only going to give you like maybe 1-2 years best. There's still a good amount of years he's got left in that on that body and in those legs to be able to play offensive line. So then it becomes a lot more intriguing. And also, from the Raiders' standpoint, there's definitely a motivation for them to be able to move him. If they trade him before June 1st, they're in line to save about 12.3 against the salary cap that they'll be
Correct.
able to utilize. And there's only about a 3.4 million dollar dead cap hit if they do move on from him. So I think the Raiders may be highly motivated to make something happen. The question is, how motivated are the Patriots to do the same in return? If they do make that move, yeah, then all bets are off at that number 4 pick, because you're no longer picking from a position of need. You're picking from a position of best player available. And I think Steve makes a great point. Ashton Gianti is out there right now as a name that continues to kind of circle this team. Yeah, I mean, if you're the New England Patriots right now, folks, bottom line, you have to be open for business for any and all possibilities. Whether it ultimately makes sense or not is going to have to be made. That decision is going to have to be made by the Patriots front office. But at this point, I wouldn't necessarily close the door or hang up the phone on anyone right now that's looking to make a move. I think the Patriots owe it to themselves to see what's out there to find the best way to upgrade this roster.
Yeah, and let me ask you this. I mean, is this too rich? Because the Raiders are at 7, correct?
They're at 6.
6. So, I mean, what if they really want Shodor and he doesn't go 2 or 3, which we're assuming he's not going to? What if they really want a quarterback? And then on the Patriots trade from 4 to 6, they still have a good chance of getting Will Campbell or Armand Membu or Calvin Banks or whoever. That if they want to do something like that, they could still take Genty if they want to go that route. They could go a totally different way. What if it's as simple as I don't know what the point scale works out to, but I wonder if they would even consider something like that.
Oh, I think they would. I think there's a possibility that you could. I know the Raiders right now, if you take a look at their second round, they're sitting, I believe, at number 37. The Patriots right now sitting at number 38. If they can find a way to kind of snag that from them and pair themselves back to back in the early part of the second round to maybe go out and get a receiver and a running back that can come in and be your anchor at that point and still hold on to a number, if the Patriots are able to do something really interesting and maybe move down from 4 to 6, still get the opportunity to take a Membu or a Campbell if they're still there, and then they double their prowess in that second round. That to me is a deal I think you have to pounce on if you're New England. So, there's a lot that could happen right now between now and then, but the Raiders are going to be an interesting team. To me, they're the ones I think to watch. Las Vegas, New Orleans is another team that I keep my eye on heading into this. These are the teams that I can foresee making the bigger splash moves rather than someone like a Philadelphia, unless they get really aggressive at the bottom part of that draft, like you said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Steve, any final thoughts on this conversation, or do we want to jump into the mock?
Yeah, we can leave it there. It was just throwing something at the wall. I mean,
Right.
I mean, because we keep talking about they need a left tackle. Excuse me. A guy like Miller is already a proven commodity. We know he's a very, very good left tackle in the NFL, and he played under Josh McDaniels a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Which has
And
been a trend for this new regime of just bringing in
yeah,
guys that
and
there's been some
let's
connections
face it.
with.
I mean, the Raiders don't really want to pay him right now what he wants. So
And the Patriots have plenty of money.
the Patriots have plenty of money. So money would not be a sticking point here. They could make Miller happy, give him a 3-4 year deal, which he'd probably fulfill with no issues, unless he gets hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
And pay him some good money, and then you have left tackle sewed up for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have 4 or 5 years with him, and I mean, he's been pretty durable. He's been a good player since he came out of college. No off the field issues. He wants to get paid, which makes sense. I mean, he's probably in that. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 range, but I'd probably put him in like the 10 to 15 range of tackles. We could, it's kind of a different exercise for a different day, but I think he's, the upper echelon of tackles, and you have a need there. So, to me, I was kind of curious, like if you move down a little bit, you might be able to have your cake and eat it too a little bit, depending on what you want. I mean, moving down 2 spots is a lot different than moving down 28 spots, like we were talking about with the Eagles from before, and every single year there seems to be a new receiver that becomes more readily available. So that to me is why the AJ Brown thing is kind of like a non-starter. As much as I love the player, it just doesn't seem to make sense. Let's get into it, gentlemen, though, and talk about the annual mock draft here. So similarly to what we've done previously, the only difference is we have a third person now. Is we just kind of rotated and went through the draft, and took turns. So first off, Mike, you were first. I have it. I'll read it off, and then you can go ahead and just give me your reasoning here. You had Cam Ward, quarterback for Miami, going number 1 to the Titans. And by the way, Mike Bergonzi, I believe an Everett native, former vice president of the Chiefs, now the Titans, just said that they have reached a consensus. They just said this a second ago. They've reached a consensus, and that they are picking at 1. So there's no secret there. Cam Ward seems to be the worst kept secret in the entire draft, going 1 there. So I feel like this is like the free space in bingo. I feel like we get this one back.
Yeah, this was pretty much a layup, or like a half a foot putt that just kind of needs to be tapped in. Obviously, the Titans have a need at the position. They're looking for their guy for the future. They've torn down the scaffolding, and they're looking to build their way up. And the best way to do that is with a quarterback. And they feel that Cam is going to be the best quarterback in this draft to be able to build around, to be able to start to rebuild the culture they have in Tennessee. There's still a lot of budding talent that they have. There are veteran players in there that can come in and help Cam right off the bat. So I just think it's a good fit. I think it's a good fit for Cam. I think his playing style is going to lend itself well into what Tennessee is trying to do. So at this point, I think that he's been the number 1 consensus pick for a while. I think Tennessee kind of zoomed in on him, and they've made their choice. And now officially, it looks like they've made their choice as well. So yeah, this was a pretty easy one to make.
Mike, you'll learn that I like to do this a lot. So I'm putting you on the spot here, okay? And I can give you my answer first if you're not ready for it. But 1 through 10, 10 being the most confident, 1 being non-confident. How confident are you that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback in this league?
I'd probably say right now about a 7 out of 10, maybe 7.
Yeah, I would say 6.5. So we're right about there.
So I mean, I like the intangibles that this kid brings to the table. I think that the swagger is something that will serve him well rather than be a detriment. I know a lot of people are concerned about that when a young quarterback comes in. There's a little bit of a brashness, to his game, but I think it's going to serve him well. I think that's what Cam feeds off of. Obviously, you worry about the mechanic. Oh, I shouldn't say worry, but obviously, what you want to do is make sure that his mechanics are ready right from the get-go. You choose quarterback number 1, you're putting the franchise on his shoulders, and at this point, it's got to be, it's got to be on you to be able to accept that responsibility. If he does that and he takes coaching well, then yeah, I think the sky's the limit for Cam, and I think he can be a very good quarterback in this league. The question is how well are the players in that locker room, the coaches that are on that staff, and Cam Ward all going to come together and attack this upcoming year in 2025 to the Tennessee Titans. So fairly confident, but obviously, I mean, there are still things that need to be worked out in order for him to be considered one of the top quarterbacks in his division, in his conference, and of course in the league.
See, Steve, he's a seasoned vet. He didn't even flinch at my question when I threw him a little curveball there. I love it. Yeah, to me, I'm with you. Just I want to keep moving through this, and we'll go to Steve's pick next. But I do like him. I do like Cam Moore, so I want to make sure that
Hmm.
that's clear. I do like him as a player, and I agree with everything you said. It would be a scary year to have the first pick to go ahead and absolutely nail something down. To me, that would be a little concerning, but he definitely has all the tools. And when he's on, man, he's on, and he's fun to watch. So, Steve, you had Cleveland at number 2 overall, and you went with Travis Hunter. You listed him as receiver. Obviously, well, we know he wants to play both ways. What's your thought here with Travis Hunter to the Browns?
Well, again, I mean, I think he's the best receiver, and I think he's the best cornerback in the draft. And if you're Cleveland, how can you go wrong with that? I mean, you need some help. Well, he can help you in 2 spots, and he's played both ways. I think Cleveland's going to jump on him, and sorry, Patriots fans, but he's not going to make it a 4.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. For me, for 3, I had the Giants, and I took Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado, and I've been pretty consistent on this. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now. I have a hard time. I know what everyone else is saying, and I'm not discrediting anybody else's beliefs, but to me, I have a hard time believing how the Giants are going to pass on a quarterback at 3. I just don't see how. Whether it's if you look at from the ownership side and you look at from the Mara side and you say, oh, well, we need a quarterback so we can sell it to our fan base. Well, then it makes sense to take a quarterback. If the front office guys don't even believe in the quarterback necessarily and they want to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and they want that shiny toy that they believe in more, well, that's fine. That would make sense too, except for the fact that if they take a quarterback and it hits, it might save their jobs. Now they might be screwed either way, but to me, I just don't. I just have a hard time believing. It just makes so much sense. Like the Sanders family, New York, the media market. It's just too juicy to pass up on. Mike, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I really find myself questioning how New York is going to pass on a quarterback at this point, seeing that there is so much of a need there. And again, seeing that, the media market and everything kind of seems to be coming together. The only thing that I can think of is that somewhere in that quarterback room, they're not completely sold on Shedeur being the type of guy that you can build a franchise around.
Yep.
But more importantly, I also think there's uncertainty surrounding what's going to happen with Ryan Daboll and with Joe Shane.
Yep.
This year, they've kind of been given that last chance to succeed in these roles. And if they don't, they're not going to. Do they want to draft their quarterback of the future right now, knowing that next year this roster could look different, this coaching staff could look drastically different? Is he going to be the guy that a coach coming in is going to want to retain? So there's a lot of uncertainty in New York right now. At that point, I could see them maybe going best player available, and if that be the case, I think we can all agree it'd probably be Abdul Carter at number 3. But if they do take Shedeur, it would not surprise me at this point, even with all of the media signs pointing elsewhere and saying that they're probably not going to go quarterback at this point.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm with you. Steve, what do you think about that?
Damian, yeah, Damian's very smart. See what he said?
Steve is seldom wrong. I agree. Cleveland bounces. Damian, what's up, buddy, by the way?
Yeah.
Hope you're well.
Well, and as we lead into Mike, I mean, Todd has already figured that out.
So that means Carter.
Yep. Todd is very wise and very astute when it comes to his prediction here. Yeah, naturally. I mean, Patriots fans will look at this and say the biggest need is at offensive tackle. Everybody's talking Campbell. You still go Campbell at that point, even though you know him, and that's the biggest need on the team. You don't leave generational talent on the board, and Abdul Carter has all the tools in place to be generational talent. If something like this scenario plays out on Thursday night, and the New England Patriots are sitting there at number 4, and Abdul Carter has yet to walk that stage and shake Roger Goodell's hand and be a pick of the Cleveland Browns or be a pick of the New York Giants, the New England Patriots find him sitting there. I don't think there's a scenario where they can leave him. on the table that makes any sense to me, because this guy is going to anchor and be a phenomenal contributor to your defense for many years to come. Will Campbell, I wrote about it earlier today for Sports Illustrated. There are a lot of people, including former Atlanta Falcons coach Mike Smith, that believe that even if he has to move inside to guard, this kid can still be an effective weapon. The question is, do you want to spend pick number 4 on a player that you think you may have to move? You draft Carter, you know where he's going.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Mike. So I had said this the other day, and I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but to me, I put this online, and I feel like it's starting to play out like this in my head. So I said there's pretty much 3 scenarios that I envision. You take Carter at 4, and then you either trade up from 38, and you probably take an OT, and then you take a running back or receiver,
Right.
BPA in 3rd round. That's one scenario.
Right.
Second scenario is you take Campbell at 4. You probably stick at 38 and take an edge player. And then you still take a running back or receiver in the 3rd round, depending on who's available. And then you take Hunter at 4, trade up from 38 for an OT, and then an edge player in round 3. Do you see that kind of playing out similarly?
Yes, absolutely. If the Patriots do decide that they're going to go elsewhere, then yeah, I can see them trading back in. If not, and they stay at number 4 and they take Will, then yeah, I can see them going the defensive side of the ball with that first pick at number 38 in the 2nd round. So yeah, I think those are very plausible scenarios, and we'll get our answer in very short order within the next 48 to 72 hours, gents.
Steve, I have you at number 5. Are you good to move on to that, or did you want to add anything to what we just discussed?
No, I think we've been talking about Carter for 3 months. So.
Yeah, we've circled the globe on that one. All right, so you had the Jacksonville Jaguars take Michael Williams, the edge player from Georgia here. Give me your thought on that.
Yeah, there was 2 ways I was looking at this, and one was Williams, who I think is outstanding, and I think he might very well be their pick because I really like him. The other guy that I was thinking of at this time was Gianti. Could they go after him and help out a quarterback that just needs help everywhere, right? But there's no better way to help out a quarterback than adding the best running back in the draft. So, but I went with Williams. I think he's really good. I think he'd be a great fit there. And those Georgia guys, I mean, there's so many of them in this draft.
There are. And, I don't dislike your pick, so I'm not throwing shade at your pick, as the kids would say. But I would say that Mason Graham to me still smells like the Jags pick. That to me, I saw your pick, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I still think Mikael Williams and Jalen Walker are way underrated in this class. For some reason, I feel like they keep getting lost in the minutia of it all. But anyways, so 6, I went with I had the Raiders. I had Will Campbell. It makes a lot of sense, especially with Colton Miller potentially on the move. We kind of already circled around that. Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add or if you just want to move on. It seems like a pretty easy kind of like, hey, we'll move Colton for a 3rd. We'll go ahead and replace him with this left tackle here from LSU and call it a day.
Yeah, if you're moving Colton, this move makes almost too much sense for the Las Vegas Raiders not to move. So I applaud your pick. It's the one I would have made if I were making the pick for the Raiders at this point, knowing the way the board fell. Kind of leads me to a very painful pick that I made at number 7 coming up, Armand Membou.
For the Jets, yeah.
Tackle out of Missouri, going to the Jets. Look, the Jets need line help. This is a smart pick for the New York Jets. This is a guy that has positional versatility. He might be able to kick over to the left side and play there, or he could be your starting right tackle for many years to come. But if you're looking to provide protection to whoever your quarterback is going to be, both in the short term and in the long term, this is the guy that could definitely do it. Membou, I think, will be a welcome addition to the green side of the Meadowlands if he ends up there.
And they would have a phenomenal line. They drafted Olu Fashanu last year from Penn State at left tackle. Joe Tippmann was the left guard. I believe. John Simpson was the left guard. Tippmann was a center. And then they have Elijah Vera Tucker from USC from a few years ago, who's a right guard, who's been a stud, who's played a little bit of tackle for them. Now you plug and play your right tackle there. You have a line that you've assembled in the last 3 years or so that absolutely absolutely could be there for the next 10 years. I think for the Jets, this would be a home run of a pick. Obviously, quarterback's a big question mark, but at least you go ahead between Garrett Wilson on the outside, your offensive line being nice and young. You got Brees Hall in the running back position. You're getting ready to be able to plug in a quarterback there for a very good situation there for the Jets. So I think for the Meadowland group, this would be a nice little pick there.
Yeah.
Moving on, gentlemen. Number 8, we had the Panthers. I just lost my place. Steve, you took Jalen Walker, the linebacker.
Jalen Walker, yeah. I mean, as you just said a moment ago, I think he's been, until very recently, he's been severely underrated by a lot of people. But recently, I think people are catching on of how good this guy is. He's a little bit on the light side for a full-time edge guy, but he can play inside, and then you can blitz him up the middle. You can move him to the edge on passing downs, and I think he is a phenomenal. I think he's Abdul Carter light in this draft.
Yeah, no, I think he has a lot of great traits. To me, I know this draft's a little bit different, and each draft is kind of like a fingerprint. It's a little bit different each time, but to me, it's a little rich for me to take him in the top 10 per se, but like I still think he's a first-round quality player, and I still like a lot about him. I also wouldn't rule him out for 4 for the Patriots. I could see someone like Mike Vrabel loving to use a chess piece like Abdul Carter or like Jalen Walker and move him around the front 7. Don't forget, he was a versatile player too. So he moved inside and outside as well. I could see them having some fun with that one as well. So that to me is an interesting.
That's why that Colton Miller, trade still,
which would make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense. Gentlemen, I had the Saints taking Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas, at number 9. To me, Kelvin Banks, real good player. I like him. There's a lot to like there. I think for the Saints right now, the biggest question mark is, do they want to move up? Because with the Raiders, I would put them in the same ballpark as, do they want to move up for a quarterback? Because now you have, an injury to your quarterback where you don't have one. They also had Ryan Ramczyk retire this year, who was a very good all-pro tackle for them for I think 3 years. He's now stepped into the sidelines. They need to replace it. They haven't really been able to get any traction, but I do think starting up makes a lot of sense. And with the quarterbacks gone in this scenario, they go ahead and replace their all-pro tackle with a new rookie top 10 pick. Mike, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on the money. And look, I think, as this board continues to fall and as we start to see the pieces come into place, a lot of these picks come into, their own when it comes to that. But the Saints obviously have a huge need, to be able to protect their, investment or whoever is going to be their long-term quarterback at that level. Kelvin certainly is one of the better athletic, linemen in the league. Our good friend Thomas Murphy has sung the praises of Kelvin Banks repeatedly on several airwaves. I'm not going to.
My wife does
Absolutely, and I'm not going to argue with Murph in that regard.
But Murph's been on him since day one.
Absolutely, yeah, he really has, and he really.
And
I
like Kelvin. I like Kelvin Banks. I just like Will Campbell more, but I mean, I can see I can make the case for Banks, Membu, Campbell. I can make the case for all of them for whatever different reason. But I still think Banks is a good solid player, and I know Murph. I know Murph loves his good draft takes. So
absolutely.
As Murph says, he likes the big fat guys.
Yeah, he likes the big round men.
He has the Bill Parcells. He has the Bill Parcells syndrome. He just wants to see the guy with the biggest ass when they put their hand in the dirt, and kind of go from there. Number 10, we're gonna do this pick, and then we're gonna take a break here, and then we'll rapid fire through the last bit here. Number 10, Mike, you took Ashton Genty to the from Boise State to the Bears. To me, it makes so much sense. You already have a pretty good trio of receivers. You have a pretty solid tight end. young quarterback in his second year, done a lot of work on that offensive line. Now you're adding that next chess piece to go ahead and give Caleb, take a little pressure off him, alleviate a little bit of that pressure, and kind of go ahead and spread to the running game. Ben Johnson, we've seen what he's able to do, and him being there, that'll be a fun combination. Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams will be very fun to go ahead and watch how they kind of develop together. Give me your thoughts on Ashton Jeanty here, number 10 to the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, Jeanty is the consensus number one running back in this draft for a reason. This kid can do it all, and I think he's going to be a nice complementary piece, or I should say, a nice complementary piece to work with him is going to be a guy like DeAndre Swift that's already on this roster. So you look at the Chicago Bears and what they're building. You mentioned get Caleb Williams some help, give him a little bit of pressure relief when it comes to being the man in this offense, and all the pieces around this just make so much sense for the Chicago Bears. And once again, you're going to give a tip of the cap to a former Patriot and Joe Tooney that kind of makes all of this possible, because his presence at the guard position on the interior of that offensive line really, I think, helps Chicago be able to free up the lanes they're going to need to have a running back like GNT be extremely effective. Yeah, the minute they got him, this one made a ton of sense to me. If he does slip to number 10, Chicago's going to be all over this.
Yeah, I tip of the cap to Joe Tooney, as you just said, who is quietly making a Hall of Fame resume, just by the way. So anyway, we're going to step aside here on Patriots 4th and 2 real quick, just for podcast purposes. And when we get back, we're getting into number 11 on our annual mock draft. Back after this. All right, we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri, Mike Diabate here. Happy to go ahead and roll through some of these draft rumors, kind of dive through, I guess minutia is the day of the word. I've used that word 3 times now. And kind of go through our mock draft here. We just finished with the Bears pick, who took Ashton Jeanty at number 10 from Mike. And now we're going into pick number 11. Steve, you had the San Francisco 49ers. You took one of my favorite players in the draft, Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. I love everything about his game. I think he's one of the safest picks in the draft. I think he is absolutely a starter. How good he'll be, I guess, is to be determined. I'm not going to sit here and, pound the table, but I think he is absolutely a starting tight end from day one, and I think he'll be a 10-year starter in this league. Tell me about Tyler Warren and your thought with the 49ers pick.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of people this year, and they still have who I consider the best tight end in the game, with George Kittle. Can you imagine those two guys on the field at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
I know that they don't normally play 2 tight ends, but I think they can make an exception here. I love this guy. I mean, I was actually kind of surprised he made it to 11 on our pick here, but he was there, and I just think he makes so much sense, going to the 49ers, because again, Kittle's now, I think he's either 30 or 31. So
yeah, he's somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, but he's still outstanding. And I was just thinking about that offense. They've lost some juice, right? And so they need a dynamic guy to step in on day one, and I think he could be that guy.
Yeah, my only wonder with the 49ers would be if somebody like Membu or Campbell or Banks ends up here, could they consider tackle? I think tackle will be a position that I would kind of be questioning. I think it's a little too early for someone like Jihad Campbell, who I think is a good player. The linebacker there, they lost Dre Greenlaw. That would make some sense to me there. I could see something like that. But I think Tyler Warren would be fun. And like you said, Kittle, Warren, you go ahead and you also have Kyle Juszczyk back in the fold. They have a lot of pieces that are very versatile that you can move all around the formation. Could be fun for Kyle Shanahan and company. I had the Cowboys number 12. I went with Tedero McMillan, the receiver from Arizona. To me, it makes a lot of sense for a compliment to CeeDee Lamb. Seems like they could use something like that. Mike, I'm really torn. I know we talked about this in the last show, but I'm really torn on Ted. I think he's intriguing, but this is a pick that scares me. If we go from the previous pick, Tyler Warren, that's someone who doesn't scare me. I feel very confident in what I'm getting from Tyler Warren. But with Ted, I'm worried. Maybe it's the N'Keal Harry syndrome. Maybe it's or whatever, however you want to call it. No due disrespect, N'Keal, but maybe it's that. To me, I'm a little worried about his speed and separation ability. I don't think he's the same prospect as Drake London. I've seen a lot of comps to Drake London. I can see how a lot of people would make that transition. To me, I think Drake was a little bit more explosive, but that's just my opinion. But I think it makes a lot of sense for the Cowboys if they're going to go ahead and get another receiver here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I like this pick for Dallas. I really don't like it for a whole lot of other teams, including the New England Patriots, for all the reasons that you've mentioned. This is a receiver that does have his difficulty stretching the field, getting the separation needed, really kind of diversifying from his defender and making himself a commodity out there on the field. But if you're looking for a guy that can stand in there, take the hit, and make that contested catch, yeah, Ted McMillan is going to give you an awful lot of ability, and he's going to give you that next level. So if that's the case and that's the type of guy that you want, and for me, I think it's a hand in glove fit here for Dallas. Yeah, that's a move you make. But I agree with you. I think there's so many uncertainties surrounding Tet right now. When I was hearing his name at number 4, continued to be very squeamish for the New England Patriots, especially to invest that type of capital that high up in the draft for him. But I like where you got him here, going to Dallas at number 12.
Can't hear you, Derek.
Sorry. To me, I would say that I wouldn't have a problem with Tet if I was taking him in the late 20s, but I have a real hard time taking him at 4 because to me, the farther you get away from the ball on the line of scrimmage, the harder it is to evaluate. So I want to take something safe, and I think that the Patriots, to me, there was like 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that I'd rather take before him. There's like 3 tackles, a couple edge rushers. Like I'd take Tyler Warren over Ted McMillan at 4.
Yeah,
if I was the Patriots. But that's just me. Steve, you had Mike, you had 13, the Dolphins, Josh Simmons, someone Steve and I really like a lot. Obviously coming off an injury. The Dolphins are kind of in a weird spot, but they could definitely use another tackle. Tell me your thought behind this, and then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at positional value, and I'm also looking right now at some of the things that I'm hearing about Josh, that he may be a little bit more field ready than a lot of people are wondering, and that'll give them a little bit less pause to go with someone like a Josh Simmons early on in the draft. Some people may look at this and say a 13's way too high, and the Dolphins have defensive line needs as well. But when you have an opportunity to add an offensive tackle his caliber, especially someone that can provide the protection they're going to need for Tua Tagovailoa, who continues to take a beating on a month-by-month basis each and every season, you want someone that can handle it. And Josh Simmons, when he's healthy, is a guy that's capable of handling that type of a load. So that was my reaction, and that was my thought process going into this one.
I mean, he
broke my heart there, man.
Yeah, I know. Steve hates to see that. Look, he only played 4 games last year before his injury, but his tape was really good in those 4 games. Obviously, going through an injury that most people are going to speculate he misses 10 to 12 months. So we'll see where he's kind of at there. Might be a redshirt year. This is a player that for some reason he falls into the 20s and the Patriots don't go tackle at 4. I think that's a guy they should target into potentially going up and getting, from 38 to move up from there. Steve, you had the Colts at number 14, and you took one of my favorite players in the draft, Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. Fun player, move him around. Dare I say, has a little Aaron Hernandez, Travis Kelce to his game. He's kind of, I know that. I know
with less murdery tendencies. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. So me, fun player for the Colts. Obviously, Anthony Richardson is under the microscope this year. This is a huge year for him, and whether he's able to kind of, sorry, Miguel, shit or get off the pot. So Loveland to me could be a player that could be fun in that offense to kind of move around and give him that security blanket. And what they kind of called this new it's kind of a term that I think Daniel Jeremiah termed. It's like the power slot. Mike Gesicki's kind of one of those guys where kind of like the bigger slot receivers, that they kind of move around and play with there. What's your thought on Leveling to the Colts?
Well, and I was looking at some indie stuff, and he's been mocked to them for the entire draft process. I mean,
Yep.
it's been like Will Campbell to the Patriots. Loveland's been going to the Colts, so it just seemed like a no-brainer there.
Oh, I'm totally with you there. My next pick here. Oh, sorry, I keep losing it because I keep skipping around on me here, which would have been a lot easier if I printed it off. But Falcons 15. I had Walter Nolan, defensive tackle for Ole Miss. He's kind of a defensive tackle and player, real fun player. You can kind of move around the line. My thought process for the Falcons was that Grady Jarrett went over to the Bears. Maybe they go ahead and plug and play somebody who is also kind of a similar player. They're explosive player, can make obviously not perfect, but there's a lot of things to like about Walter Nolan's tape. Mike, any thoughts on that, or do you want to roll to the next one?
No, I just think I like the fact that you're giving Nolan a little bit more love. You consistently see him toward the latter part of the first round. I've seen some.
I think people like him more than everybody else does.
Yeah, he's moving into that middle part, and I think that's where you may end up seeing him. So yeah, keep a sharp eye because the Falcons make an awful lot of sense, and it's kind of why I made the move that I made at 16, which is the Arizona Cardinals picking up Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. Matthew's been a fast driver up these draft boards that we're seeing. I think someone that can come in, make an immediate impact. Cardinals already made a big move at wide receiver last year with Marvin Harrison Jr. They'd love to add a solid complement and have a solid 1-2 punch for many years to come to go along with quarterback Kyler Murray. So that's why I went with this. I know the Cards could have gone in a few different directions, maybe O-line, maybe on the defense. They definitely have both needs there. But for a talent like Golden that can pair well with Harrison, I think this is a move they have to make.
Right. Makes a ton of sense to me. Steve, anything to add on that, or do you want to roll right into 17?
No, I agree with Mike there, and
So we're going to go right into 17, where you had the Bengals pick. You had Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. Any thoughts on him? I have one or two things to say, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, extremely disruptive. I think in the FBS, right? I think he was the most disruptive guy in terms of against the run and the pass, and in the past year. So, the Bengals have several needs on defense, but I think you can't go wrong taking a tackle like him. I think they're going to end up working things out with Trey Hendrickson, and you plug this guy in there. I think he's a day one starter for these guys.
To me, guys, he is. I mean, if Bill was still the head coach, I'm not saying it but this is his kind of guy.
Yeah.
Watching him, reading about him, kind of what I've studied, size, speed, length, he has it all. Great two-gapping ability to kind of stack and shed there a little bit, and I think, like you said, he's an explosive athlete. He has. I think that this is the kind of player that a couple of years ago, if they were picking in like the early 20s, I would be asterisk, underline, highlight the whole thing. This is a Bill kind of guy. Impressive player from a program that's really developed some pretty good guys over the last few years in Oregon. Next up, guys. We have again as I loaded. Next up, we have. Apologies.
18.
Thank you. 18. I had the Seahawks. Tyler Booker, the interior offensive lineman from Alabama. Got some versatility to him. Huge size. And Seattle needs interior offensive linemen badly. I know there are some guys who want to take a quarterback. That's not going to happen right here. I could see Jackson Dart doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. It's a little rich for my blood. I think they're better off building the line and maybe trading back up if they want to. But Tyler
Booker's out.
Booker here it just makes too much sense. He's a plug and play starter from day one.
Yep. Outstanding player.
Yeah, without question. From absolutely fortifies that interior, and if you're Seattle, that's I think the most important thing right now, more so than like you said, Derek, going after a quarterback.
So next up, you have both you guys picking, and two of these players are two of my favorite players in the draft for different reasons. First up, we have Mike at 19, who was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He took Mason Graham from Michigan, who I think, obviously not everything we do, is going to come to fruition, but we've done a pretty good job kind of circling different scenarios, right? Mason Graham falling all the way to 19 would be a shocker to me, but in this scenario, it made sense. And to the Bucks, seems like a good fit. Mike, what was your thought behind that?
Yeah, I know a lot of people will look at the Bucks and say their need is more along the edge than it really is at defensive tackle and along.
But you can move him all up and down that line.
Exactly. Mason Graham is that type of player that
him and Vita Vea would be a fun combo.
Oh, unbelievable! It really would be. And if you want to talk about what that would do to Tampa's defense for many years to come, that again goes back to the argument of taking best player available. At this point, you're looking at the board. I have a tough time picking anyone else here than Mason Graham as being the best player available. So that's why I went with him, and I think the Buccaneers would do the same if he does fall to 19. But I agree with you, Derek. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, it's just one of these situations where it seems someone's going to fall. Put it this way: this is the thing with the draft. It's like not everyone can go top 10 because that's how all these things work. You get closer and closer to the draft, and all of a sudden, everybody's a top 5 pick. Everybody's a top 10 pick. Well, somebody is going to have to fall. Through the cracks. Now, I don't think Mason Graham's going to fall all the way to 19, but in this scenario, he did. So it is what it is. Now, Steve, this is one of my favorite players in the draft too, and I might like him even more than Ashton Jeanty, which is a lot because I like Jeanty a lot. But Omarion Hampton to me from UNC, the running back, is so fun, and with Sean Payton and Bo Nix and that whole system there, I think we're talking about giving Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson Ashton Jeanty. Now we're talking about giving Bo Nix and Sean Payton Omarion Hampton, who can catch the ball, run the ball, and has great contact balance, can go ahead and break tackles, pretty much can do it all. 3-down player. I think it would make a lot of sense here. Tell me about your pick.
Again, this is a guy that's been heavily mocked to Denver since day one.
Yep.
And it just made so much sense pairing him up with Sean Payton because he's the kind of runner that Payton loves to have. And he's he's one of those guys that has the big frame, and last year in UNC he set a record for, I think it was like over 2,040 or 2,030 all-purpose yards.
Yep.
He's one of those north-south guys, and he will punish you, in that short yardage type of thing. So
he reminds me a ton of Maurice Jones-Drew. Every single time I see him, I see MJD. That's just me. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of. You could probably make a lot of comps, but I like Jeanty. I like Hampton. I think both players. If you want to be one of those people that you don't want to take a running back on the first round, I can't go ahead and sit here and argue with you, but I think both these players are very good guys that can help young quarterbacks, and I think that's what we've seen the Bears and the Broncos do in this mock and this simulation here. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. 21, I had the Steelers. I went with Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama. A little risky. I don't know. I go back and forth on him and Jackson Dart. Not me personally, but I mean for the Steelers, I have a hard time. The Steelers are hard because they're a traditional draft team, which means they draft premium positions high. They also have done a really good job. Say what you want about Mike Tomlin. You can say whatever you want. I think he's just a tad bit overrated. But I also, in the same breath, would say that he does an incredibly good job of steadying the ship, and he knows how to be a leader of men, and he knows how to go ahead and get guys forward, which is why they always they always finish right around 500 or just above 500. But what they've been missing since Roethlisberger retired is that signal caller. They thought they had it in Russell Wilson, maybe it was Justin Fields, whatever. I don't know if Milroe's going to put it together. To me, he's a splashier Joe Milton. He has a lot of talent. I'm not saying they're the exact same player. I'm just saying that they both have talent. Milroe, I just think projects as a little bit higher. I just think his consistency is the biggest thing for me that I have a hard time kind of buying into. I'm not sure if he's a first round quarterback. I just wonder if Pittsburgh feels like they can literally keep hanging on with these retreads and these journeymen under center when they need a signal caller in that room. They need somebody in that room who can be their franchise quarterback. I'm wondering if Milroe can be that guy. Mike, what do you think about that? Because I feel like this is a really kind of a weird spot to pick for the Steelers.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, there's definitely high upside without any question. There's a risk in taking him, this high up in the draft, and especially for the Steelers that, for lack of a better term, do need some help at the position. This would be an intriguing pick, and I think it does have the ability to come off. And Alabama, say what you will, no Nick Saban anymore, but that is still an organization and still a program that just churns out pro level ready quarterbacks and guys that know how to get the job done. So yeah, I like Milroe in this situation. We'll see what happens. But if he is going to fit with a team and be able to make an impact even in year one, I can see it being with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I could see a situation where they take him again. The 20s is a little rich, but they're not going to be able to get him when they pick second. So it's like maybe they take him, they let him sit for a year, and then they kind of let him rip after that. They need to find a situation in that quarterback room that's kind of steady and easy because they're just not finding it. And going back to 22nd, and let's try to rip through these last 10 relatively quick because I don't want to go too long or Ian's going to yell at me. 22, Mike, you had the Chargers. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. Give me your thought on that pick.
Familiarity with the player. Obviously, Harbaugh knows him from his days at Michigan. This is a guy that can come in, be an explosive part of your front seven. Chargers have a number of different needs. They could have gone in a few different directions here, but Grant is highly respected within Wolverine's lore, and I think that sends him to the Chargers if he's available in the spot.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting pick. Obviously, Michigan's cranked out a ton of guys. Steve, at 23, you went with the Packers. You took Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, one of the most explosive athletes in this whole entire class. For his pound for pound, he's an animal to deal with on the defensive front.
Yeah, I was going to go cornerback here. Actually, I was going to go Will Johnson.
I was thinking about either Will Johnson or Jody Barron, the Texas cornerback.
Yeah, but then when I saw, and again, I mean, Stewart was still available. I thought that was like too good to pass up, and so I went with him. I mean, yeah, this guy is so explosive, and the fact that he was still there, again. I really like this guy, but it's one of those weird things. He has all the flash out there. He just didn't have a lot of production, so maybe that's why he slides here. I'm not sure, but when we seen him at the Senior Bowl, he was like ridiculous. So.
To me, my thing is always draft off traits, not production. I mean, to me, you want to see in a perfect world, you see traits and production. But to me, I want to see. I care more about traits. Because you can't teach. You can't teach 6'5", 267, running a sub 4.6 at that size.
Speed,
yeah. So yeah, he only had 1.5 sacks his last 2 years. 1.5 each. But to me, you can move him around. Green Bay traditionally has drafted offensive and defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, the first round specifically, and then they kind of get into skill positions later, which is why I think Elliott Wolf, who comes from that tree and that lineage. That's why I think he goes Will Campbell, which is kind of circling back to a different point. But that's kind of where I come from. But I still think really intriguing player, Steve. Really fascinating. As we continue going, who's up next here? So I guess I'm up next. So I had the Vikings take Nick Imawari from South Carolina, Steve's Gamecocks there. I think he's a player that would be really fun to use for Brian Flores and them. Play him at safety, play him as the big nickel, put him in the box, move him around. Great athlete, great build. Kind of reminds me of a souped-up Kyle Duggar. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I think Imawari is a great pick here for the Vikings.
Blew up the combine, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely, really did. Stood out very much. So if I were making the pick for the Vikings, I probably would have gone with him. Or there's a possibility that I might have gone with Jihadi at the quarterback position, cornerback, excuse me, because of the Vikings' need in the defensive.
I was
backfield,
thinking
but
I couldn't. I went back and I honestly just to peel back the curtain, not to cut you off. I did kind of think about that because it seems like DB's the pick for them. It just depends on what they kind of want. I thought Brian Flores, coming from an aggressive style, coming from kind of the Belichick tree, I thought he might like the chess piece in Nick Imawari. That's
agreed, and I think it's a smarter pick. I think it's actually the better pick for them. It may not be the most popular when it comes to Vikings mock drafts, but I think you've definitely identified his versatility and the strength with which he plays the game as putting him over the top. So I do like this pick an awful lot. With the opposite side, when you look at number 25 now on the Houston Texans, obviously, I mean, everybody pretty much has them dipping their toe into the tackle position, the offensive line. Josh Connerly Jr. Is the best available at this point, with Josh Simmons being off the board and Emberlin, those guys. So even though Connerly has been linked to a lot of early second-round picking, I think the Texans, if they don't see an offensive lineman to their liking at this point, I don't think they hesitate here to go with Connerly, who I think would be a good fit in Houston.
I like Connerly a lot. I know Steve does as well. Steve, why don't you talk about your pick to the Rams at number 26?
Yeah, real quick about Connerly. You know, the way this particular draft is playing out, and it could, play out like this on Thursday. It speaks loudly how the Patriots might be forced to trade back into the first round if they want to get one of these top guys if they don't take Campbell.
Very good point.
Yeah. But anyway, at let's see, where am I?
26, the Rams, you took Will Johnson, the cornerback.
Yeah, Will Johnson, cornerback, Michigan. Got really good size. His tape is really good. The medicals will have to check out, but the only thing about him was he declined to run the 40, and I'm wondering if he has a little bit of a lack of that top end speed there. But when you watch the tape again, like you were saying, the tape speaks for itself.
You look at his tape from 2 years ago, and it's as good as you're going to see from a cornerback in CBS. I mean, he's
outstanding.
He was terrific. I mean, and Michigan has done a tremendous job of breeding defensive beasts on that side of the ball. Georgia and Michigan, those defenses are breeding pros like nobody's business. And Johnson had a rough year. A lot of people said he had an issue. I forget if it was a groin or an ankle, but it wasn't perfect, so there's some pause. I kind of similar, Steve, to Mason Graham, what I was talking to Mike about, around the middle of that draft. I'd be surprised if Will fell all the way down here, but I can see it happening too, just based on how the board fell in this scenario.
Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Really good player.
Yep. Yeah. So number 27, I had Jihad Campbell, the linebacker for Alabama. I had a hard time kind of finding a spot for him. He's a first-round player. I just don't know where exactly to fit him. I thought it was kind of fun to picture him in that defense, kind of moving around. You have Roland Smith, so it's like you can, you can kind of move him to X, Y, or Z here. But I think he'd be a fun player in Baltimore to kind of move around and be a little chess piece for that defense. Mike, as we go over to 28, you had Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle for Oregon, correct?
No, actually, Harmon went earlier to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Sorry.
Team had him. I ended up going with at 28 with the Lions.
Sorry.
I ended up going. No, it's okay.
Yep.
I ended up going with Jahadi Barron, the cornerback. Obviously,
Love him.
I think the second best cornerback in this draft, behind Will Johnson at Michigan. Detroit's got a need there now. Obviously, Carlton Davis III is in New England, and I think there's a good fit that could be made with that pick. So Detroit goes defense, and they try to stay very, very strong and aggressive in that regard.
I have a few, I'll call them quote unquote my guys in this draft. Barron's one of my guys.
Yeah.
He's a lock. He's going to be a good player.
Oh yeah.
Where he goes, I'm not saying he's going to be a stud. I mean, he might be, but he's going to be a good player and starter in this league. Promise you, his tape is too good. Steve, you went to Luther Burden here at 29. Another guy who's really fun to watch.
Yep.
And for the Commanders, now you go ahead and now you're ready to rock. If you're the Commanders, you have some serious firepower there. You're getting your second-year quarterback, an explosive player, one who kind of reminds me, honestly, a little bit of Stephon Diggs. But Luther Burden, to me, is a fun player. There's a lot of questions about him. And look, and I say this every year. I always preface these things, and Steve and I have been doing this for a long time. We can't sit with these guys. We're not sitting and talking to these guys, so I can't tell you how they are personally. I can't check their medicals. Those are two things I can't do. It's impossible. Those are for the teams to do. So I'm sitting here from the outside perspective. A lot of people, there are some questions about Luther Burden Monday through Saturday. I have no problem with him on Sunday. I promise you. He is a gamer. He's gonna make you buckle up that chin strap twice, and he's gonna go ahead and punish you on the field. Plays with what I call a controlled aggression, Steve. I love his attitude on the field. He sets a tone, and I think that it'd be fun for that Commanders offense here at 29.
Yep. He's got above average speed. He feasted down below, in Missouri's offense because he's electric with the ball in his hands. So they try to get him a lot of, easy throws, short yardage, and turn him into bigger gains. But I think at the next level, he'll be able to stretch defenses all three levels of the football field. And I think he's going to be a very, very good, NFL wide receiver just because, of his traits. And, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. No, makes a lot of sense. For the 30, for the Bills, I took Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, a little earlier than I've seen him in a lot of mock drafts. I just think he does a lot of things well. The Bills have lost a lot at the safety position over the last year or two, and I thought that this would be a good kind of way for Sean McDermott to kind of patrol his back end. Starks can kind of move around a little bit. I think he's a smart player. I think he's physical. Some concerns, but nothing crazy. I think here, if you're the Bills, it makes a lot of sense if you're replacing some of your safeties that you had to go ahead and as you kind of transition from your old defense to your new defense. Mike, any thoughts on that, or do you want to move into 31?
No, I think that it's an intriguing pick as well. I like the fit in Buffalo. There's clearly a need for defensive backs, and I think Starks is someone that can come in and really help to bring back some of the pop in that latter part of that defense. So good pick there by you, Derek. I like that.
I think that if going back to our conversation a few minutes ago, if I can't even say his name. Eminore, the South Carolina safety. I think if he doesn't go to the Vikings in this scenario, I don't see him falling farther than 30 to the Bills. I just think there's too much intrigue there. I think it makes too much sense. You took at 31 as the Chiefs one of my favorite tackles in this draft, Ariante Ursary, the tackle from Minnesota here. makes so much sense for the Chiefs. They can go ahead and restock. This is a great spot for him. Honestly, if the Patriots if they take anything other than tackle at 4, this is the guy that I want them trading up for from round 2 to go ahead and hopefully leapfrog the Chiefs in this scenario to go ahead and steal him. Give me your thought on Ariante Ursary to the Chiefs at 31 here.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense. We saw what the Chiefs looked like last year when you have a player that is a solid lineman but playing out of position at the tackle position. Ursary doesn't have that issue. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism. Obviously, the fundamentals need to come into place, so I think Kansas City is an ideal place for him to go where he can learn, he can really settle into the role and not be counted upon to be the guy for a young quarterback. Great quarterbacks can mask some very difficult players on the offensive line. We've seen it for a number of years. So if Ursary needs a little time to come into his own, who's a better guy to play alongside of than Patrick Mahomes? So this just made too much sense for me for the Chiefs to pass on when they're looking for tackles. Again, best player available, and I think they got a good one here.
Yeah, I might have to get Murph on the podcast so I can fight him because I think Ursary's better than Banks. So just let you know, Murph, if you're listening, suck it. But personally, I'm a big Ursary guy. Steve, I thought you had a really interesting pick here at number 32, last pick of the draft, and we'll go ahead and wrap this pick up, and then we'll give our final predictions and hop off here. Jordan Burch, the edge player from Oregon. A lot to like about him, Steve. Great size, 6'4", 280. Okay, some pretty good production. He ran a 4.7. I mean, but you're not looking for if you're needing your defensive lineman to run a fast 40, you're probably turning the ball over the wrong way. So,
at 275, 280,
but he can
that's
move.
A really good 40 time.
Yeah, no, I think to me, Steve, really intriguing. I think his highs are really high in terms of what he's able to do. I do think there's a little inconsistency there, though, from what I've seen. But I still think the intrigue is there, and adding an edge player to that already stellar front in Philadelphia seems like a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think this pick makes a ton of sense for them at 32. Again, he's a little inconsistent, but the traits are all there. He has the prototypical frame for edge guy. I just think, they put him on that defense, and I think the inconsistencies are going to, go away with this guy. And, they'll train up. He has a couple of flaws that need to be taken care of, but nothing major. I just think like you said, the consistency needs to be there for him. And, I think he's a really good fit for Philly's defense.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I want to finish off with 2 questions for you guys, and we can go around the horn on both of these here, and then we'll wrap up. Always fun to go ahead and go through the podcast. Obviously, we're just going ahead and we're doing the mock, and we're just kind of playing some different scenarios out. I guess, Mike, let me ask you this first. What would be, again, a little surprising for you, but nothing you can't handle. What would be the most surprising thing that would happen to you on Thursday? Anything that would really totally shock you from either a Patriot standpoint or just a draft standpoint?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll start with a Patriot standpoint. I think it would surprise me if the Patriots went in a different direction other than Will Campbell at number 4 if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter are not available. Let me give that preference because I do believe that, again, you don't leave generational talent on the board. I don't think this leadership group in New England would do that, but I do think it's going to be surprising to me if they go in another direction. Everything we're hearing out of Foxborough does kind of lend itself into the fact that these guys are very, they would be very comfortable making this pick at number 4. Now, whether or not they entertain a trade, I think that's a conversation perhaps for, this current day. I think there may be a situation where they may entertain the idea of trading down and maximizing their draft capital that way. But if they're pick and stick at number 4 and Carter and Hunter are off the board, I think at this point they're going to stick. They're sticking because they're looking at a guy like Will Campbell that can come in and transfer this offensive line. And I think it not only is the intangibles and the skill set that he brings to the table, it's also the leadership and the locker room presence that he can give that I think puts him over the top through his peers. Don't forget this is a line that lost David Andrews. You don't have that sage in the locker room anymore that's going to keep things in line. I think they see Campbell as being that type of guy that they can rely on for many years to come. So, yeah, that would surprise me. On a national level, I think short of Tennessee Titans going back on their word and not taking Cam Ward, I don't see anything at a national level that would shock me at this point. This draft is kind of wide open, and I think anyone and everything is on the table for all teams right now.
Yeah, what I think is going to end up happening is going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, probably Abdul Carter, and then probably Will Campbell, if I had to go top 4. I still, Fedor is in there, and I still think there is a potential for that. I'm cool if the Patriots trade down a couple picks, but I don't want them to trade down too far because, as we already talked about, I think that it's imperative they come away with a pillar player. What I call him a pillar player in terms of I want a second contract guy, meaning you're building with this guy. You know, you have a corner, you have a quarterback, go get your guy that you're going to build with kind of moving forward. Steve, give me what's anything that would surprise you or something that would jump off the tape to you, Thursday night when the draft kicks off?
Boy, when it comes to the Patriots, I think there's so many different directions they can go with this.
Yeah.
And regardless of, if Carter or, Hunter, if they're there. However, I'm looking at for the Patriots, I think if they were to go wide receiver with their first pick would really surprise me.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I would be more surprised by Tedero McMillan at 4 than I would be by Jalen Walker.
We have a question.
What are the long shot odds? 4th pick, TJ Watt. I hear contract talks are a standstill. So this might be an unpopular opinion, and I don't know how you guys feel. Good question by John. Thanks for listening and thanks for reaching out. I don't know how you guys feel. Let me ask you this. I feel very similar to the TJ Watt conversation that I do to the wide receiver 1 conversation. I think the Patriots are not ready for that yet. If they had the left tackle, maybe they were quite a little bit more developed, I would say, yeah, let's add that cherry on top with the receiver. Let's add that pass rusher, the extra pass rusher there. I don't think they're in a position to trade the number 4th overall pick for an edge rusher, especially one who's going to be right around the 30-year-old mark, which isn't old, but it's old enough in the NFL where you only have a short shelf life. What is he going to play, 4 or 5 more years? Yeah, I mean the Patriots it'd be benefited by it, but I just don't think they're ready for that yet. I think they're building to that, but they're not at that point yet. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're building toward it. I don't think it's something they're ready for at this point because of the needs. And again, you build from within and you start to build those trenches up, and that's where you're fortifying this team for many years to come. So no, I'm in complete agreement with you on that, Derek.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I think if you're on the cusp of contending for a Super Bowl, this is a move you make because it would put you over the top, because now you got that cherry on top. You got a guy that that can come up big in big moments for you. But, he is 30 years old now. So, I wouldn't make this pick with the number 4 pick. I would not.
No, to me, it's one of those things where it's like if you're picking in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're more established and you want to just add that, you go for it. But number 4th pick in the draft, when you don't even have a left side of your line, you don't have a top receiver, no specific order. You have holes all over your roster. I just don't see how you go ahead and make that move. I just think that's way too rich and way too early to go ahead and do that. Gentlemen, let's end this on this question here. Mike, and I'll go to you first. Cards in. You're on the clock. Patriots are taking who on Thursday night?
Number 4, I still say they're going Will Campbell.
Steve?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike, but I feel like we're all going to go around the same time.
I think we've said it all.
Steve, you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still love for Carter to be there, but I think it's Will Campbell.
I agree. I'm with you guys. Well, look, hey, Mike, again, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on the gig at SI. Looking forward to seeing your coverage there. We might have some news as a group here, but we're not quite ready for that yet. That will be soon, hopefully. But really looking forward, guys, to the draft on Thursday. Again, we're recording this Tuesday, April 22nd, right around 3 o'clock p.m. And, I'm looking forward to just talking about the picks and no longer kind of, as Mike Felger would say, circumcising the mosquito here. We've been kind of going right around and around and around we go. Looking forward to it, guys. Can't wait to talk to you next week. Each round, we're going to go ahead and have a quick little synopsis, kind of a breakdown of the players that they select, and then we'll do one full breakdown as soon as everything's done. Looking forward to it. For Mike Diabate, for Steve Balsherry, I'm Derek Havens. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Patriots 4th and 2, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube and Apple podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keep us high in those rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. And we will see you guys Friday morning, right after the first round of the draft. Can't wait. Talk to you then.